up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Whoa, not gonna give up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Rise up, yeah. Oh, we're gonna rise up.
Well, welcome to Rise Up, hosted by me, Steve Collum. I'm so excited you're here. Today, we have an amazing guest interview for you. I'm going to be interviewing Glenn Lavender, and he has got an amazing story, how he started Silver Hand Meadery, not brewery, meadery. And if you're not quite sure what that is, it's a honey-based brewery, and it's amazing. So I'm so excited. We're going to talk about some of the obstacles that he had to challenge and some of the things he had to kind of go over or get through to reach some of his dreams. And we share like 3 great, amazing tips and points that I really think will benefit you. And you'll be able to take those keys and be like, chase your dreams, chase the businesses, chase the things that you want in life, and by using these 3 little keys. And so I'm excited, and I also want to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by my Patreon account, which is, if you head over to patreon.com/Steve Collum, and I encourage you there, think about maybe supporting me, and as little as a coffee a month, that helps run this podcast. And the main reason I started this podcast, I wanted an inspirational and motivational discussion group where I can show you keys or help you reach your dreams. And the beginning of this year, me and my wife gave birth to our precious little son Asher, who was stillborn, and it really rocked our worlds and really changed us. But I really wanted to give him a voice. I wanted to be able to give him a voice, and no better way, I thought, than some sort of inspiring and encouraging and motivational message, a motivational talk, where every single episode we share amazing stories on how people overcame those tragedies or obstacles in their lives. So anyway, feel free, please head over to patreon.com/Steve Collum, and think about supporting us here. So awesome. Let's go ahead and dive into this amazing interview. Awesome. Well, I am so excited, and so this is going to be great. I've been wanting to talk to Glenn for a while. So this is Glenn here from, and he's actually been an amazing. He's actually created an amazing company called Silver Hand Meadery, which is we're going to talk about how he built that up to be a successful brand and company, and a little bit of the nuances or the intricacies of running finding your own brew and all that kind of thing. So thanks so much, Glenn Lavender, for coming in and hanging out with us.
Yeah, sure thing. It's my pleasure to jump in here and to get to know you a little bit better, Steve. Like we've, our paths have intersected just a little bit, but not enough to really spend enough time to get to know one another. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I know. We've passed each other a lot in the halls of different music conferences, and because Glenn actually does an amazing. He has a bossa nova group that we'll talk a little bit about later on. But you're a very accomplished musician, and right now on the I know people listening on the podcast can't see, but in your background there, I'm just going to describe. You've got like a piano organ thing. I can see a guitar. You got an upright bass. You got an amp. You got so much music. You got a trumpet there. I can see you got so much music in that room, and it's and a condenser microphone in the corner.
It looks like I set it up for it. I really didn't. It's like I'm prepping for a gig, and so every day I'm in here just and I play it for this gig. I got to play so many instruments. So I've got my playlist set up on my computer that I just hit play, and then I play along with everything, and I got to rotate through everything. So it's all just out right now. It literally, yeah. But it looks a bit like a setup. Sorry about that.
Absolutely. It's a working room there. And so
totally.
Yeah, you do a lot of music. And so tell us a little bit about your, tell us a little bit about how you started your mead company, Silver Hand Meadery, and then also break it down for us a little bit. Actually, before we start, what is mead? Like, what is the difference between mead and beer? And for some people that some of the viewers, or what's the difference?
Yeah, the listeners aren't going to a lot. Yeah, we found when we started this business, what we really started was an educational facility because nobody knew what it was, yet they were still coming in. So like this curiosity kept bringing folks in. So the best way to think about this is any fermented beverage requires a source of sugar. And that source of sugar usually is what defines what the beverage category is. So if it's the source of sugar comes from fruit, any kind of fruit, it's kind of overarching category is wine. Then within that, you've got cider and all sorts of other things. But and then if you're pulling the sugar from the grains, if you're extracting it from grains, then that's a kind of a beer. If you're pulling it from apples, which is a fruit, we call it cider, of course. But if the sugar is coming from honey, then it's this other beverage called mead. And so we don't brew. There's no brewing happens. We don't even we don't use warm temperatures at all. All we're doing is blending honey with water. We have to dilute the honey because honey on its own will never ferment. They found honey in the pyramids that was still good. So it lasts pretty much forever.
Wow.
So honey is one of those amazing things and so good for us. So we add water to it to dilute it. And if we just left it, it actually, because there's natural yeast in the air, there's yeast in honey, there's yeast in on everything, the yeast would actually begin to consume the sugar and start to ferment it. However, we like to use the kind of proven yeast strains that we know will make a really great drink. So we'll generally add like white wine yeast or cider yeast to it. And those yeast strains prefer different types of sugar, like glucose or fructose versus glucose. They'll use both, but they might have a preference for one over the other. And that kind of changes the fermentation dynamics. And so it gives us different flavors. So at its simplest, you can call it honey wine. Or mead is its name. And it is just honey, water, and yeast at its simplest. Now, we never leave it at that because we're too bored and creative and we want to do different things. So we have all sorts of fruit and herbs and spices, coffee, tea, hot peppers, chocolate, whatever. So whatever we're allowed to put in, we'll put in. Yeah. So that's what mead is. Yeah. That's the answer to the first question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. And so, so how did you get started with this? Like what made you, what made you get going and think, hey, I'm actually going to turn this into a business and
Okay, so here's where you and I are very similar, I think, in this regard. Being a musician, you got to be an entrepreneur because you want to survive, right? So I spent 12 years on the road with a band based out of Nashville. We had a couple of different record deals during that time, and stewardship has always been a really important word to me and concept to me. And so when we would spend, 6 to 8 hours a day just sitting in a van, pulling a trailer, getting to the next gig, if I'm not driving, I wanted to make the most of that time. And so I would be editing videos for the band, or I'd be reading, and my one of my bandmates was always like, "You're always reading these books to like get better. Man, how do you read those things all the time?" It's like, well, I also read novels, and I loved reading novels. And actually, so the combination or where things met there was these historical fiction novels by an author named Stephen Lawhead. These books that always took place in these Celtic times, and you involve like Vikings and stuff. So you always had mead involved. If there was a wedding, there was mead. And by the way, honeymoon, that's tied to mead because it's honey wine. The bride and groom were given a month's worth of mead so that they would have a better chance at conceiving in their first month of marriage. So that's honeymoon.
Oh my goodness.
That's an aside there. But if there was a battle won, they'd be drinking mead. So that was like my fictional reading. And then I got into beekeeping along the way and discovered, I didn't know what mead was when I was reading these books, right? So like mead, okay, some old drink, I don't know what it is. Then I got into beekeeping, and these beekeeping catalogs would always have a page of like mead making gear. And I was like, oh, this is like a honey drink. And then I couldn't find it anywhere. Like it wasn't in stores. And so living in Southern Ontario near Toronto and Niagara Falls at the time, I couldn't find it in stores. So my wife and I, we've tracked down a winery in the Niagara region, which by the way, Niagara is kind of like, I don't want to be too hyperbolic, but it's sort of like Napa. Like there's so many wineries in Niagara. It's crazy. And one of them had enough beehives that they could make mead, because there's a rule in Ontario. You have to have, I think, 100 beehives or more to be able to make mead and sell it. And so we went there, and I'm a little unusual. I didn't drink alcohol until I was 27. Neither did my wife. So we went and did a tasting there. And to us, it was new, just like wine was new, just like beer was new, just like cider was new. It was just another drink, you know? And we thought, well, this is great. This is as good as those other drinks. Why is it so hard to find? And I think that's when the seed was planted that, hey, maybe this is a business one day. And so I didn't want to drive to Niagara Falls every time I wanted to try mead. And so I just figured out, I got on some forums. There was a forum, I think it still exists, called gotmead.com. And you could like get on with these guys, and they get crazy. Like it's a bit too much sometimes, but I figured out how to make mead. So I would, I'd make it, and then I'd go on the road for 2 or 3 weeks, come back and see what happened, and put it in a closet, forget about it. And it is one of those things where if you forget about it for a few months, it's actually usually beneficial. So it was nice to be like, oh, right, I've got that mead. I should try it today. And sometimes it was like, oh, wow. And other times it was like, oh, wow, that's gross. So, there's a learning process for sure. But that's kind of where I got it from, reading, and then trying to isolate a potential opportunity as a craft beverage market's blowing up. So yeah.
Gosh, wow. And so what was some of the obstacles that you had kind of doing that? It sounds like it was a bit of a trial and error. It's like, oh, don't mix those flavors together. I don't think anyone's like that or
yeah. Well, so I thought making 5 gallons is a lot different than 100, but not a ton different. But I didn't know how different it was. So there was that obstacle that was going to be coming, I knew, but that was sort of in the distance because I didn't want to do a test batch of 100 gallons of mead that I wouldn't be able to, that's very expensive. Honey's, it's but the most expensive sugar to ferment. So the obstacles, boy, man, when you want to start a business, a brick and mortar business that is essentially a manufacturing and retail establishment, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. So I when the band came off the road, my band was called Down Here, by the way. And of course I got to throw a plug in. We're all over Spotify and that sort of thing. We did really well over those 12 years, and our singers are incredible. I miss those guys dearly, but
what's the name of the band again?
So it's one word, Down Here, and you'll appreciate we got mixed up as being called Down Under way too much. We're like, no, we're not Down Under, it's Down Here. So yeah, after 12 years of being on the road, I came to Virginia and worked at a church, and I was there and it was the first time I ever had like a real job and a real expected paycheck. Because on the road, it was sort of like, well, how many gigs do we have this month? That's what we're dividing up, right? And the odd royalty payment. And so now, oh, wow, I get a regular check. But with the regular check came regular meetings and came limited vacation time, and you're expected to do this and that. And so that doesn't fit my personality too well. And so about, 2 years in, year and a half in, I said to my boss, hey, I know I moved my family to a new country to do this, but I said, I'm not going to last long here. I couldn't see myself doing 5 years of it even. So I thought, if that's the case, I just need to move on. And he said, what are you going to
do? A different country? Or do you mean like you came from Canada originally?
From Canada. I moved from Canada to Virginia. Yeah. Yep. And he asked what I was going to do. And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, if you can hang around till Christmas, I worked at a church. So he's like, if you can hang around to get us through the Christmas season, that'd be great. I said, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. And so the challenge of starting a new business is how much money it's going to cost to get off the ground, get a business plan together, get people who are willing to support it. we were at the point where I didn't work for a year, so I was just teaching lessons. I still don't know how we survived that year. I have no idea how we could have paid our bills. Like it's my wife is a stay-at-home mom, and so she didn't work. So anyway, it's a bit of a baffling mystery to me. I did get a number of people to become investors in the business, and thankfully they didn't buy shares of it. They just invested, and I promised them a high interest rate return if they got in at different levels. And so that we raised a good amount of money. So when the business started, though, I'm not comfortable with debt at all, and it was sort of one of those situations that if this thing crashes, we're selling our house. I'm moving back to Canada into my parents' basement with my wife and my 3 boys, and we'll try something else, I guess. And so that was, I mean, everything was kind of on the line to make this thing go.
Well, I got to jump in there and say that's absolutely amazing, because so many of the viewers and people listening are like, they have a dream. You know, you had this dream and of doing that, and you took action, and the fear was probably screaming in one ear. You know, what if you could lose everything, and you're going to go back to your parents' basement, and then but the opportunity or the upside was just so big. And so I just want to encourage people listening now or viewing that whatever your dreams are, these are some of the steps. These are some of the tight ropes you have to walk. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said the upside was so big, but I didn't really know that there was going to be, I hoped there would be an upside. I thought there should be an upside, but I think the thing is, it's like, what is the real risk here? Is the risk losing everything and moving back in with my parents, or is the risk being stuck in something you don't want to do the rest of your life, which is going to like put stress on your body? It's going to cause problems in relationships because you're not going to be happy. And that was starting to happen to me. And so it's kind of like, the greater risk is staying in this seemingly comfortable role and potentially losing myself in it. And then that would be bad on my family, my boys, my wife, and then I'm not doing what I was built for. I just feel like, I think we all know we've got unique skills and gifts, but man, you just have to step out there and jump in with everything you got.
We could stop right there, because that's absolutely amazing that you didn't even look at it like as you weren't doing it for like I guess the reason, or the gut reason that you were doing it, is because you were not going to stay with where you were at. You were not happy with, and so everything was better or anything was better. And having that idea or that dream, it was just so worth it to do it. I love it. I think that's such an entrepreneur at the absolute core. I think.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It's like, it was desperation in a way too, right? It's just like, no, I want to, and the funny, so I was going to say, I want to choose my own vacation. I want to choose my own hours. And then you start a business and it's like, oh, okay, I'm working all of the hours and not getting any vacations, which, kind of was the case for the first like 3 to 4 years. But I do want to counter that with with how we know each other through the music world. We are this will be our 8th year. We're 7.5 years in. We started with 1,100 square feet. We have one building at 3,300 square feet and another 4,000 square feet building now. And I've got somebody managing one tasting room and the other person managing our production facility. And then I try to spend all my time in here starting another business, and that's producing music for artists and film and TV and stuff. So I'm like, it gave me the gift of being able to do this. I don't know how this whole music making thing at this level even can happen if you don't have money coming in or somebody supporting you. So I'm really grateful for the place that we've been able to get with this business for that reason.
That's absolutely amazing. And from myself coming into how I got the time to get into the music world, to get into the sync and have thousands of placements, was 4:30 in the morning, I was writing music, like 4:30 to 6:30 before I had to do my get ready for my day gig. It was just, I was so desperate. And I was just like, I have to do this with my life. This is what I'm supposed to be doing this, and I just knew it. I just couldn't do anything else. I was just like, I'm going to be a zombie for the rest of the day, but if I don't care if that's what it takes.
Yeah. I love that, because it's kind of the whole, like, I treat it now as like, I love my meadery business. It's been such a fun journey we've been on. And I think I feel like I'm more of the startup guy. I'm not the like maintain and blow the thing up to be a global phenomenon guy. And so I'm trying to hire people to do those things, and keep things rolling so I can start up the next thing. And so my strategy is always, as much as you can, just like you did, do the thing you want to eventually do it now. Like I'm already doing it. I'm not making any money doing it, but I'm doing it every single day for as many hours as I can, because I want to do the thing now that I want to be doing in the future. And so I'm trying to just do it as much as possible. It's like putting the reps in, right? Like I got to get better at playing every instrument. I got to get better at producing. I got to get better at co-writing with people. And it was fun. I see breakthroughs all the time, even though, like, the older you get, you start to think, are things going to slow down a little bit? But man, I feel myself getting better at every instrument. I feel myself getting better at co-writes and letting go more. Like I had a co-write the other day, Saturday, and I had sent her something. We've been working on the song. I sent her one thing and it was like, it didn't work. So I was like, okay, well, I wrote something else and sent it to her and thought, oh, I think she'll dig this. And she wrote back and she was like, it sounds a bit too happy. And then I listened to what I sent her and focused more on the lyrics. And I was like, oh gosh, what did I do? Of course, that's way too happy. So I'm at this point where I'm just like, whatever, there's more. Abundance has been my word for this year. So it's like, whatever, there's a million ideas. We'll come up with another one. And that one that we had that we're throwing away, I'm not throwing it away. I'll just move it over and that can be something else another time. So it just looked like that was not how I felt 2 years ago. I would be holding on to everything, being like, oh, but I've spent an hour on this, and so it's just like learning. We're always learning. We got to always be learning, or else we're in trouble.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you hit on an area there where it's like, 2 years ago, you've grown so much 2 years ago, but you took that first step. You're like, okay, let's start this new business, or let's get into this music thing that I really want to do. And you dived in, and you're going to learn the more you're with something. And there's always that it's a sharp learning curve when you first start something. So, anybody who's try and start their own business, you're going to learn a lot in the first few years. And then it's, it's not as a sharp curve. And then you do get to a point where it's like, it's just streamlining things and making things faster and just more streamlined, which I imagine now that you, if I get it right, you said you've got a building, a brick and mortar store for your brewery, or for the meadery, I should say.
Meadery, yeah.
And so you're having people run that. I'm sure you've had to learn a few lessons on. You've had some ups and downs with managers and people that you've had to hire, and lots of.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's like what really matters are people, and so trying to do our best, and it's hard. It's trying to do our best though to look after our team, because if we look, I'm at the point now where like I'm not doing tastings, I'm not involved in too much of the day-to-day stuff, but I've got to look after my immediate reports. So my managers, right? So I've got, we have a tasting room here in Williamsburg, Virginia. And then we've got a separate facility about 10 miles away where we make everything. That used to all happen in the same place, but we grew out of it. And so we've got our mead maker. He's in charge of that space. And we got our tasting room, retail. It's like a winery tasting room, basically. And she looks after that space. And so I try to make sure that those things are all working well and working together, and trying to think ahead about the future as to where this thing can go next, and write as much music as I can at the same time.
Absolutely.
So today I was fixing a toilet over there, or no, a sink that was leaking because I'm still cheap. I didn't want to hire a plumber. I was like, no, I can figure that. I know how to do this stuff. Like, I've plumbed this whole stupid old building, and so it's like, I'll just. She told our tasting room manager told me we got a problem in that bathroom. It's like, okay, so yeah, I'm plumbing one morning, and then I was in New York 2 weeks ago for a thing representing our city and pouring product, and you just never know what it's going to be.
Gosh, and so coming back a couple of years ago, there was something called the pandemic and the COVID-19 thing. So how did you get through? Because you're on the other side and you haven't closed shop. You haven't
Yeah.
kind of get through that. And is there any lessons there, any tips there where it's like you obviously beat that, or you didn't get flattened by that pandemic?
Yeah.
Well, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Glenn. I've learned so much stuff, and we've got some great wisdom nuggets and some great lessons from firsthand, from your experience, from the things you actually went through and the things you did, and hopefully you guys have, as you've learned listening or watching this, that you've taken some of those nuggets and you're able to use them in your future. Whether it be talking about habits and creating those habits, or building the confidence that you need in order to be successful. And of course, if you don't know, head over to Silver Hand Meadery to find out more about Glenn Lavender and order some of his amazing drinks there and beverages. But I wanted to let you guys know that this podcast is sponsored by patreon.com, my account, which is patreon.com/Steve Collum. And if you head over there and, seriously think about maybe supporting us, maybe even as little as buying a coffee a month, or just becoming a part of what we're doing here, and allowing Asher Kai, my stillborn son, to have a voice and have a voice out in the world. We're here creating inspirational and motivational messages and stories, and interviewing motivational and inspiring people. So think about that, and every little bit helps. Thank you so much. And also we I guess we'll wrap up, and I will see you in the next episode.
Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Whoa, not gonna give up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Whoa, not gonna give up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. Rise up, yeah. Oh, we're gonna rise up.